Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Today I'm going to continue on the series that we're discussing about Islam. Now, there's one very important thing in religion in general and in Islam in particular, and that is dua. Okay, we all ask Allah for our needs. And of course, we are supposed to ask Allah for our needs, because asking Allah for our needs is acknowledgement that Allah is the one who bestows on us all that we require, that Allah is our nourisher, Allah is our sustainer, Allah is the one who looks after us, Allah is the one who keeps our breath going, who keeps our heart going, who is intimately engaged in our lives at every moment. So we are completely and utterly reliant on Allah, and so why should we not ask Allah? So we see in the Quran Allah says, and call on me, okay, I will respond. Okay, so Allah says to the believers, call on me, I will respond. I respond to the one, the caller, who calls on me when he calls. So let him respond to me and my call, so that he may be rightly guided. Okay, so this is the teachings of the Quran. It again demonstrates a reciprocal relationship. Okay, this is a reciprocated and a reciprocal relationship. We call on Allah, we ask Allah, we make dua, right? وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, famously known. I will cite the verses in the video or in the comment section later, because this is impromptu, so I don't have the actual citations in front of me. And Allah says that He does expect a reciprocation, okay? So let him respond to me when I call, respond to my call, okay? أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ دَاعِي إِذَا دَعَانْ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. So let him respond to my call and let him believe in me, so that he may be rightly guided. So this relationship with Allah, the one of dua, I spoke about the relationship of obedience to Allah, okay? Because I put Allah first. So of course, now I'm talking about the relationship of reliance on Allah and dua. But there's another aspect to our relationship with Allah in relation to this dua and asking of Allah, and that is the relationship regarding what Allah has decreed. So in Islam, we believe that everything has been decreed by Allah in advance. Okay? So famously in many ayat of the Quran, Allah tells us about this. Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. So Allah's qadr is over everything, and some people translate this as Allah's power is over everything, but we also have the evidence from the Quran itself and the Sunnah that Allah has written things in advance, okay, that everything has been preordained, okay, so there's a preordainment. We call this qada wal qadr, and the knowledge of which is beyond our ability to conceive of or perceive of rationally anyway. It's something we believe, it's something we know exists, but we are not able to conceive of it rationally. So for example, the Quran says that everyone's time of death is written. The Quran teaches us that, okay? The Quran says that to those who ran away from battle, that they think that they can escape death, that death will fetch them even in the tallest towers. When your time comes, your time comes. Okay, it doesn't matter what you do to safeguard yourself, you cannot outrun the time of death. Okay, when Malik al-Maut, the angel of death, comes, he'll come to you wherever you are. Okay? So we are told also that Allah gives you your wealth, your sustenance, that it is decreed that if you are meant to be rich, you will be rich, and if you are meant to be poor, you will be poor. So these are all part of and within the teachings of Islam. And then we are also at the same time taught that there's free will, okay? That we are expected to earn our rewards, okay? But the rewards of good is tenfold, and the rewards of evil is equivalent to only the evil that was done. So how do we reconcile these two things? Okay, scholars have over the centuries, in fact, developed various ways of understanding these two different things, which is now the paradigm between irada, free will, and qadr, okay, the predestination. And without getting into the polemics around this discussion historically, and there were many, I'm going to present you with a simple way of understanding this issue, and also how to navigate your life in light of this issue. Why is this issue revealed to us? So let me first begin with predestination. Now we have examples of stories in the Quran which demonstrates this predestination. The one major story in the Quran, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, starts with a dream. Okay, he says that he saw, Yusuf alayhi salam saw 11 stars, 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. He says that he saw the 11 stars, the sun and the moon, and I saw them prostrate to me. Okay, he said this to his father, and his father says, don't tell this dream to your brothers, because they may plot against you, and they plot against him anyway. And he gets thrown into the well, and then he gets rescued from the well. Then he gets taken as a servant in the house of the Aziz, the governor of Egypt. Then the woman of the Aziz tries to seduce Yusuf, but he's proven innocent the first time around, and then she insists on her plot and goes to the next level. She invites all the women of the town, and she gives them knives and fruit, and they start cutting the fruit, and when she calls him in, they cut her fingers. So handsome he was. And then she says, look, if you don't do our bidding, which means now, of course, she wants him to be immoral with all these people's wives or women, right? Then he says, no, the prison would be better for me than that. And he goes to jail, and in the jail there are two people with him, and they have dreams, and he interprets the dreams correctly. And the one that is freed forgets about mentioning him to the Aziz, and eventually the Aziz has a dream and he asks for interpretation, and then this guy remembers Yusuf finally, and Yusuf interprets it correctly. He gets made the manager of the silos, the where they keep the wheat to preserve the wheat, and eventually he has a position of authority, and his father and mother and brothers come and they do sujood to him, which was a sign of respect at the time, and the dream is fulfilled. Okay, so this is an example of what? Allah's taqdeer, okay? Because the prophecy is fulfilled. But the prophecy is fulfilled by seemingly evil means. Okay, why? Because it was wrong to want to kill Yusuf in the first place. It was wrong to throw him in the well. Then he was rescued. It was wrong for the wife or the woman. The Quran doesn't say wife, the Quran says woman. It was wrong for the woman of the Aziz to want to seduce Yusuf. It was wrong what she did. He was wrongfully imprisoned. He was accused and imprisoned wrongfully. This is the hatred towards Allah's servants, right? And then what happened was, eventually he came out on top. But he came out on top through the adversity of all these things. These wrongs that were plotted against him were actually part of the plan. Although the people who were enacting the wrong didn't think so. They were doing it obviously to their own advantage and benefit. But they didn't realize that they were just pawns in a bigger plan. Okay? They were actually subservient in the grander scheme of things. Yusuf was the main character and they were subservient to him. And this is how Allah favors some above others. Okay? Going back to our previous talk, we said that Allah says in the Quran that اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us on the straight path, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, the path of those whom you have favored. So they are those who are favored. So in this story it shows you the interaction between players on the stage of life, and certain are favored and their actions are actually to the benefit of others, okay, who are the favored of Allah, although they think that they're doing it in their own benefit, and although they think they're going to get away with their evil even is to the advantage of those being tested with it. And so this is what I first want to say about predestination, things being written in advance. We cannot understand while in a situation what the benefit of the situation is, but as believers we put our trust in Allah and we remain steadfast and we remain true to the best of our ability to our faith and the commandments of Allah. In this case, Yusuf was remaining true to himself, not to do the bidding of the woman who belonged to other men. Okay? So anyway, so that is the story. So this is an example. Okay? There's another example which is in Surah that we read on Friday, Surah Al-Kahf. And in this story of a man who had knowledge from Allah, which they typically label, it's not in the Quran, the name is not in the Quran, but they typically label him Khidr alayhi salam. In the traditions, they say this must be him, okay? But Allahu Alam, the name isn't mentioned in the Quran. So Musa alayhi salam meets this pious servant of Allah who has knowledge from Allah, and he says, let me travel with you so I may learn something from what Allah has given you. So he recognizes this man's status and rank. Remember, Musa alayhi salam is a Nabi, okay? But he recognizes this man nevertheless. And the man says, you know, you will not be patient with me. You will not be able to bear with patience what you will see with me. And he says, let me come with you, and if I object to anything and I say anything, then we can go our separate ways. And the man allows him to go with him, and he goes with him. And then firstly the man finds a boat and he renders it inserviceable. He makes some sort of hole in the boat, he breaks it, and the Musa alayhi salam says, but this is wrong what you're doing. Why are you doing this? He said, didn't I tell you will not be patient with me? He said, okay, forgive me for forgetting this time around, but please let me continue with you. He says, okay, you may continue. He goes continue with him, and then Musa alayhi salam sees him find an innocent child, and he kills the child. And Musa says, look, how can you kill a child, an innocent child? You know, this is wrong. And he says, didn't I tell you you will not be patient with me? He says, okay, look, this is the last time. If I object again, then we will part ways. He said, okay, they carry on. Then the guy finds a wall that's broken down, and he starts building it up. And Musa says, this is a strange thing you do. I mean, this guy is a strange character. I mean, first he vandalizes property, then he commits murder, and now he's building a broken wall up. Like, what's wrong? This guy is something wrong with him, man. You know? So Musa alayhi salam asks him now, okay, what is this now? You know, this is strange thing you're doing. He says, okay, this is where the two of us will part. We will part ways. هذا فراق بيني وبينك. We will go our separate ways. Okay. سأنبئكم. I'm now going to tell you the ta'wil. Okay, the meaning of the events that took place. And he says, okay, as for the boat, it belonged to a pious man who uses it for fishing for work, and I just wanted to render it inserviceable, not destroy it completely, because there was behind us a tyrant king who was seizing all the boats. So this boat I rendered inserviceable, so it could not be seized. So this saved the man's property. It wasn't actually breaking it. Okay, the breaking was minor compared to what would have happened. As for the child belonged to pious parents. He was going to grow up to be a wrongdoer and cause his parents a lot of grief. So this was a mercy from your Lord on them to kill the child. As for the wall beneath was a treasure, and the treasure belonged to a pious parents, and the inheritance, this was of the child. And I wanted the child to be able to find the inheritance when he was ready to do so. So I was protecting the treasure underneath the wall. And this was not from me. All this was from Allah. So this was the ta'wil. Okay, so I'm paraphrasing and summarizing in brevity. But this is the gist of it. So the point of it is, if you were living in this situation, and this is about predestination, qada wal qadr, and you were that parent whose child was killed by this guy, right? In your mind, you will think, oh, what an evil guy, right? He should be punished, and he should be killed, and how dare he kill a child because he's evil. And indeed, under the normal constructs of law, okay, that is correct. And so Musa alayhi salam had the right to object to that, because look, it is correct. I mean, you cannot, right? But there was a knowledge of an outcome, a predestination that was at play here. And this knowledge was beyond even Musa alayhi salam, and it is beyond all of us, because we cannot understand. But the pious parents of now the deceased child would say that what? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That from Allah we come and to Him we are returning. In principle, that Allah has the right to take what Allah gave in the first place. Okay? And they would have sabr, and they would turn to Allah, and this would be a cause for them to come nearer to Allah, accepting that it was this child's time of death. Okay, the way the child died was horrible, but it was a child's time of death, and this is part of Allah's qudra. So what is the lesson in this? The lesson is that when tragedy befalls you, that you have sabr, and the Quran tells us that, whenever there is a musibah on you, those who believe, they say that what they have sabr, and they say, we come from Allah and to Him we are returning. So this demonstrates that. Now this is the qudra, this is the taqdeer, this is qada wal qadr. Okay, so this is the one aspect. Now we're going to go to the other aspects. I gave you two stories that demonstrates that. Okay, now we're going to go to free will. And the reason why it's important for me also to emphasize free will is because people sometimes mistakenly use the notion of qada wal qadr to escape responsibility. So someone will be reckless, and some bad thing will happen because of his reckless behavior. Then he'll say, oh, you know what, this is just the decree, predetermined predestination of Allah, and absolve himself from the responsibility of cause and effect, of the consequences that he brought about. Okay? So there is this aspect also, and of course without this aspect you cannot have religion, without free will. Because Allah promises Jannah and Jahannam. Allah commands you to obedience, and obedience through what? Free will. Because the Quran tells us emphatically, La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana rushd min al-ghayy. There is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from falsehood. So you need to choose, in other words, to do the right and not the wrong. So this is your free will. When you choose the wrong and you suffer the ill consequences of your actions in the realm of cause and effect, you cannot blame Allah. Okay? When you suffer, okay, the happenings of life that are out of your control, that you have to bear with patience, but you also need to always reflect on yourself and improve yourself, and that is the balance that we need to have. So when we suffer the ill consequences of our own actions, we need to recognize so that we can learn from it. Otherwise we will not learn anything. Okay? And when we suffer ill consequences that is entirely out of our control, okay, we have to understand that we need to bear it with patience, turning to Allah, being steadfast, and being strengthened in our faith through the adversity, because this is the makings of the believer. It's a test, it's a ground for testing, right? They say the strongest steel is forged under the hottest flames. So this is the flames that test the believer. Okay, so to that end, we read in Surah Nisa, ayah 79, chapter 4, verse 79, Allah tells us, whatever good befalls you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself. Okay? So again, whatever good befalls you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself. We have sent you as a messenger to people, and Allah is sufficient as a witness. Okay? So don't now go to an extreme with the issue of predetermination and absolve yourself from all responsibility when Allah has given you responsibility. So you must remember that Allah also says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ, I think it's وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Okay, and your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him, and you are kind to your parents. This is a decree. So we must not understand only things in terms of predestination. We must also understand that Allah has also predestined or predefined how we should behave and commanded us, and we should follow accordingly. The important thing is that we are accountable for our own actions, that we not try to escape our accountability through allocating the things of our bad deeds to shifting blame and putting it on Allah. Because now we also have, for example, the disbelievers in the Quran. They say that why should we feed people that if Allah wanted to feed them, He would have done so Himself. This is the attitude of the disbelievers. Okay? And then they can simply just say, well, Allah decreed that these people should be poor, so why should we feed them when Allah decreed that we should be rich? A'udhu billah. So we must be careful not to confuse the issues of the commandments of Allah and what we should do, right, and the grander scheme of how the world works. These are two different things, okay? There's a grander scheme of how the world works and what Allah has decreed for the world and everything in it and the future, etc., etc. And then there's specifically what Allah has ordered for the believers. And if you are a believer, you need to act according to what Allah has ordered you so that you can play your part within the grander scheme of things. So, for example, the sinful woman of the Aziz played her part, which was a bad part, was the bad villain role in the grander scheme of things. This didn't mean that Yusuf alayhi salam was now not to play his part as having obeyed Allah within that situation and context. So who do you want to be, in other words? On the stage of life, do you want to be the Yusuf or do you want to be the Zulaykha, which we say is the name of the woman of the Aziz? In tafsir, they say that's her name. The Quran doesn't mention her name again. So this is the question I leave you with. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.